Hey everyone, super excited that you're joining us for this thought leadership series, Tech RX, your prescription for tomorrow's healthcare device challenges. We're diving into DevOps for devices, helping innovators at companies in healthcare have a guide to enterprise fleet transformation. I'm so excited to this step-by-step guide with these interviews that we're doing in partnership with Esper so you could transform your devices and fleet. For more resources on how you could do this and make it happen for your organization, go to outcomesrocket.health/Esper. That's ESPER, outcomesrocket.health/Esper. Hope you enjoy the series. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Outcomes Rocket and this special series, Tech RX, in partnership with Esper, your prescription for tomorrow's healthcare device challenges. We're having a really phenomenal time talking about that healthcare device conundrum, taking the guesswork out of device management, and really just across the board, great conversations with leaders. And today I have an extraordinary leader with us. His name is Filip Peters. He's a chief executive officer at Acorai. I'm so excited to have him here. Just Filip, thank you so much for being with us and for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. And so, devices are at the core of a lot of what is done, and especially in cardiac care. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Filip, and about your company, Acorai.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the CEO and founder of Acorai. We started this company about 4.5 years ago. And we are, as you mentioned, we are developing a piece of hardware, which tends to take a little longer than one expects. But in essence, what we're doing is we're building a non-invasive heart failure monitoring device, which is based on something that's called non-invasive intracardiac pressure monitoring, which is really there to help us manage hospitalized heart failure patients much better. The problem that we have identified is that of inadequate monitoring tools throughout the heart failure patient journey, which unfortunately results in a lot of adverse events and poor patient outcomes for these heart failure patients around the world.
Yeah, there's definitely big gaps. And so tell me, how did you get into the healthcare space?
Yeah, so it's, I think like a lot of health tech founders, it's a bit of a nonlinear pathway. I was actually working in finance for many years on the machine learning side of things. So my background's in machine learning, I would say, all time series data since I started playing around with machine learning. I had this opportunity to join a MedTech startup in Israel a few years back, and I took the chance to do it and completely switch industries. And for better or worse, I've stuck in that industry, right? I think I became aware of a lot of problems within the healthcare space that needed fixing. And I saw, like many others, that there was incredible potential to apply machine learning insights from other industries into the healthcare space. And, I think rather naively, I assumed that the healthcare space was like other industries, and it quickly dawned upon me that it is more complex from a regulatory, clinical, and commercialization perspective, right? But I'm still here. So.
That you are. And is it that much different between healthcare and finance? Because I look at finance and I think that's pretty regulated too.
It is, right. I think what makes healthcare complex is that it has a lot of intersections between different sub spaces, I would say. So, you need to have a really solid understanding of the clinical pathway, the regulatory pathway, not to speak of the commercialization pathway. And then on top of that, for us as a hardware device company, you need to know how to build pieces of hardware. And as we all know, hardware is hard, right? And adding a machine learning / software component on top of that is hard as well. So, I think we've kind of we've kind of dug our own grave and in some respect by making things hard for us. But at the same time, we've also created a really fantastic device. Nothing great comes out of something easy. So it is mixed blessings there, but we're happy where we're at now.
No, that's great. And hey, if anything, I'll say you dug a grave for a big problem that hopefully goes away with what you guys are doing. And look, people see what you guys are doing. You're backed by multiple big names in the healthcare industry, like Cedars-Sinai, Mayo Clinic. the European Innovation Council, Bayer in North America, and in the EU. Can you share a little bit about your experience and the growing pains that come with fast expansion, and how have you overcome these challenges?
Yeah, it's a constant putting out of fires, right? You manage to get rid of one, and then another one pops up, and that's kind of the way of a startup, I suppose. I think for us, it's just about grit and persistence, and just dedicating ourselves to the end product. Which, when we talk to cardiologists, nurses, and hospitalists about the potential of this device to transform heart failure management and heart failure care, it's just so obvious that there is such a huge need for it. And to your point, there's a lot of different players out there that recognize this, including healthcare systems, including pharma companies, including MedTech VCs that have invested as well. So with enough convincing, I think we've been able to tell a really good story, and that's resonated with a lot of different people and a lot of different organizations. So it's just really about that belief in what we have is great, and being persistent and learning to love the many no's that we get along the way.
Those no's are part of the process, and so when you grow, you feel those growing pains. Any thoughts around our listeners that they could learn around overcoming some of these challenges?
Yeah, and this is going to sound like a good advice is always easy to give and hard to follow, right? I think looking back, what we have done well and what we can do better always is focus, right? We are, to your point, a small organization with limited resources, and there's always shiny objects in the form of different projects that can be pursued. But for us, it's really about if a project or something we're spending time on is not directly focused on that end goal of getting this product to the market as quickly as possible and as impactfully as possible, then we throw that in the bin, or at least we put it up on the shelf somewhere where they pick up at a later point, right? So focus is really the name of the game to survive in this field.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and do you apply the same thing to your calendar for meetings?
So it's funny you asked that, right? Because I think my role as a CEO and founder changes and has changed over the past few years. I was much more of a product builder in the beginning, getting my hands dirty with the machine learning. That had to evolve into more fundraising and storytelling and leading a company and setting the vision for that company. So with that, my calendar has had to change as well. I had a lot more deep work planned in the past, which had to make space for investor calls. And I'm now slowly trying to get myself back into some of these deep work blockers that I have in my calendar, so I can spend some time doing real thinking as well.
Hey, totally appreciate that for sure. And look, as a lot of the listeners tuning in, they're founders and they're leaders too, with the same struggles and the same opportunities. So really appreciate you sharing that. Devices is the key of what we're talking about in this series is difficult. How are you managing your devices that are currently in test trials? And when do you roll out software and app updates?
I think as a device company, or any company for that matter, you got to focus on what you're good at. And what we are good at is building, a novel technical solution that's able to detect and monitor heart failure with a much higher level of accuracy than anything that's out there today. What we are not great at, or better than the people out there today, is building the user interface and software associated with that hardware, right? And I think there's mixed feelings about smartphone manufacturers these days, but what they are really good at is building fantastic smartphones at a really, really affordable cost and with really high performance. So we have been able to leverage those components of a device and integrate that with our circuit boards that do the actual proprietary sensing of these various physiological signals. And I think that's been really key for us. The issue there, of course, I think, as you're alluding to, is when you have a non-medical device connected to your medical device, there are compliance issues and cybersecurity issues that need to be appropriately addressed to be able to run clinical trials and to go through various ethical approval processes around the world. And that's where we've been able to leverage companies such as Esper to help ensure that we are fully compliant with different medical device regulations around the world. So for us, that means making sure that the smartphone component of our device, as they're being tested now in a clinical trial, can only be used for that specific purpose. That we can do, discrete and remote updates of the software, depending on different needs that we have. And I think that remote interaction with our devices has saved us so much resources and cost in terms of being able to run a very much a decentralized global clinical trial. So, we're at running a 1,500 patient trial across 6 countries and 14 different hospitals. And we have minimal on-site monitoring because we're able to do so much of the monitoring and training and updates remotely through the app that we built essentially.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's a big trial, and it sounds like just being able to control variability and pushing any updates. You need to keep it the same across the entire trial. How long is it? How long are you guys going to go with this particular one?
Well, we're approaching the finish line here. So we've enrolled 1,200 patients so far. So we have another 300 patients to go. We're expecting that to be finished by Q3 of this year. And then, it'll be a race to get kind of our regulatory submissions prepared and filed in the US predominantly, and then in Europe towards the beginning of next year. And then we're hoping to have our regulatory approvals to start commercializing in the US and Europe by the end of 2025.
That's fantastic. Well, congrats to you on that. And it sounds like partnerships are a key strategy for you and the team to make this happen. And as you've developed those partnerships and developed your products over time, we know that things happen. Are there any notable hardware obstacles that you've encountered? And do you have any future iterations in mind?
Yeah, I mean, we're already on the 2nd generation of the device now that's being tested. We already have plans for generation 3 and generation 4. So that's those are work streams that we have internally that are ongoing. I think we were in a sense, COVID was a blessing in disguise for us in the sense that it taught us how bad a supply chain crisis can be in the hardware space. And we were lucky to experience that in the prototyping phase as opposed to in the actual commercialization phase, right? It caused us a lot of headaches at the time, but retrospectively, I think we were lucky in that sense. Secondhand prices of certain components going up by 50, 60 times, right? It was just insane. But that taught us a lot of things about how to choose the right components, how to make sure that the device is, scale manufacturable and can be produced on scale, not just in the prototyping phase. And with that comes designing the actual assembly of the product and all these kind of other things that you don't really think about when you're trying to optimize performance. But once you're trying to become a real company, so to speak, and get out of the science project stage, they become very, very interesting. But going back to your questions on the specific hardware issues, I don't think the actual hardware issues are that much different from any other hardware development issues. One of the main issues with hardware development is that the reiteration cycles just are so much longer than a software development reiteration cycle. So if you detect an issue, it's going to take you a few weeks to get those new circuit boards and see whether the issue has been addressed, right? So that is and will always be an issue. We are getting better, I think, at rapid prototyping methodologies of different circuit board factories around the world, but that will always be an issue.
No, appreciate you sharing that. And look, at the end of the day, you guys are creating life-changing technology. You mentioned the importance of not only focusing on the tech and its own iterations, but the supply chain around that tech. I mean, there's nothing you could do during COVID to plan that. Nobody knew, even the best had nothing, right? Like nobody knew. But definitely, I think to your point, the right timing for being in prototype stage instead of deployment stage. This conversation has really opened up I think a lot of things for people to consider in the entire life cycle of their product and in the planning phase. Really appreciate your thoughts and your ideas here. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I mean, I think a general tip and something that we probably should have done earlier is just get good advisors from different fields, right? There's so much value to, we work with chief innovation officers and CTOs of large medical device companies. And just from a medical device development perspective, there's so many kind of gut feeling, hard lessons learned type of pieces of wisdom that they have that you're just not going to read in a paper anywhere, or that you're not going to get that from a young employee with a few years of experience either, right? So I think getting those types of people on board is super important. And I wish we'd done that earlier, even though we've had fantastic advisors. But that's kind of my number one takeaway from the hardware development perspective.
Great takeaway there, and really appreciate all of your insights on today's episode, Filip. Again, for all of the listeners and viewers of today's episode, just a reminder that just go to the show notes and you'll be able to get all of the links and short notes on our discussion. Just go to outcomesrocket.health/Esper. You'll be able to find all that there. Thank you all for tuning in. And Filip, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this outstanding series with Esper on Tech RX, your prescription for tomorrow's healthcare device challenges. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and the entire series. For details on how you could take your DevOps to the next level and transform your fleet, visit us at outcomesrocket.health/Esper. That's outcomesrocket.health/Esper.